Barbuda is an eco-lover's paradise, where long, pink and sandy white beaches are protected by impressive barrier reefs, keeping you as secluded and untouched as the island's beauty. Just as Antigua and Barbuda's beauty will capture your imagination, its history will also enthrall you. From early natives through Christopher Columbus and recent British influence, these islands are a truly unique place where past and present meet harmoniously at every corner. From cliff-top forts and 18th century harbours to plantations and historic windmills, Antigua's rich history as a gateway to the West Indies is only part of its allure. Antigua and Barbuda offer everything the discerning traveller may need. Well acclaimed as a top choice for special family holidays, romantic getaways, weddings and honeymoons, the wide variety of accommodation and amenities are first class. From secluded and private villas and beautifully appointed hotels to shorefront restaurants, fine dining and luxurious spas, everything you need is there to feel relaxed and pampered. Antigua's capital city, St. John's, is charming and traditional. Bustling with life, warm and welcoming, this traditional West Indian city is a popular hub for shopping and dining. St. John's is also home to the citadel of a Caribbean passion, the Sir Vivian Richards Cricket Ground. While across the island, at the historic English harbour, sailing fanatics from all over the world descend on Antigua to take part in the world-famous Antigua Sailing Week. Well known for its annual carnival, Antigua and Barbuda is also home to a vibrant music scene. Come discover Antigua and Barbuda, where the beach is only the beginning.
Sunshine glowing on a turquoise sea. I'm swaying just for you and me. Island rhythm never leaves a trace, but it's tattooed on my soul's embrace.
Muy buenos días, señoras y señores. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Rogamos a las delegaciones, por favor, acercarse a sus lugares para que iniciemos nuestra sesión de esta mañana. We ask all the
Pedimos a todas las delegaciones que por favor tomen sus asientos para comenzar la sesión de esta mañana. El mío está en inglés.
Ah, that's true. I did. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Hi.
This is my one word.
Nice to see you.
Welcome to the day.
How are you, sir? Nice to see you. Yeah, pleasure, Albert.
You have your script, right?
I do. I have my script.
Perfect.
Do I stand up or do I just read it from the chair?
No, no.
Yeah, I can.
Right here, you'll read it. Señoras y señores, estamos a punto de comenzar esta mañana. Por favor,
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin. Please take your seats.
to start your proceedings. We know your conversations are very important. Perhaps you can find another more appropriate space. We need to start now. Mr. Chairman, we can start.
Are you ready? Yes. Good morning. Please be seated if you're standing. Honorable ministers and heads of distinguished representatives of the member states, Mr. Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Albert Randin, Mr. Assistant Secretary General, Nestor Mendez, permanent observers to the OAS, representatives of inter-American and international organizations, representatives of civil society, the private sector, and other special actors, special guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to welcome you to this 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States, held in the vibrant and welcoming city of St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda. On behalf of all the delegations, I express sincere appreciation to the government and the people of Antigua and Barbuda for their generous hospitality. As we gather here today, we're reminded not only of Antigua and Barbuda's contributions to the hemispheric agenda, but also of the unique identity and national pride that make it such a valued member of our inter-American community. Okay, now we will proceed with the election of the President of the General Assembly. In keeping with the rules of procedure of the General Assembly, we now move to the election of the President of this regular session. I now open the floor for delegations wishing to submit a nomination. The floor is open.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you to all. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Distinguished colleagues, a very good morning to all of you. I wish to express, on behalf of Colombia, our deepest thanks to the warm welcome shown to us by the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and for the warm hospitality shown to us. We are very honored to be joining all of you here and hoping that the return of the General Assembly to this Caribbean renews the commitment of the OAS to the shared principles and to facing the shared challenges that bring us here today. We also trust that this is also a source of inspiration to achieve the desired results and concrete results which we all hope for. Colombia would like to propose the Minister of Foreign Relations of Barbuda, the Honorable Foreign Minister, to lead this General Assembly, Chet Green, and we know that he will carry these duties with a regional view towards the future that we all wish to build together. Thank you. Thank you, Colombia.
A second? Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic, I understand. I call upon you.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegations, a good morning to all of you. The Dominican Republic has the honor of adding our voice in support of the motion by the distinguished Foreign Minister Laura Saravia of Colombia for Chet Green, the Foreign Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, to preside of this 55th ordinary session of the General Assembly of the OAS. We know and value the commitment and the spirit of collaboration of Foreign Minister Chet Green, qualities that doubtless he will know to put at the service with a sense of deep responsibility. We trust that under his leadership, this period of ordinary sessions will be carried out with an openness to dialogue and a genuine vocation to jointly build together solutions for the welfare of all of our peoples. Thank you.
Seeing no other nominations, I move to approve. Okay? So we're approved. We've already got that. Your Excellency, Everly Paul Chet Green, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade, and Barbuda Affairs of Antigua and Barbuda. On behalf of all member states, allow me to extend our heartfelt congratulations on your election as President of the 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. We extend our heartfelt congratulations on your election and reaffirm our unwavering confidence in your leadership during this assembly. Your generous hospitality in hosting this pivotal gathering is deeply appreciated and reflects the spirit of unity and purpose. You may count on our steadfast support as you guide our shared endeavors. Under your stewardship, we are confident that this assembly will foster meaningful dialogue, strengthen multilateral cooperation, and advance the shared values and priorities that unite our hemisphere. I now invite you, sir, to take your place at the head table.
Honorable Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Heads of Delegation, esteemed Ambassador Benoni Bedi, Chair of the OAS Permanent Council and of the General Assembly's Preparatory Committee and Permanent Representative of Brazil to the OAS, distinguished representatives of member states, esteemed Secretary General of the OAS, Albert Ramdin, and esteemed Assistant General Secretary of the OAS, Nestor Mendez, distinguished permanent observers of the OAS, representatives of international organizations, representatives of civil society organizations and other social actors, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to thank the distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs and Head of Delegation of Colombia, Her Excellency Laura Sarabia, and the distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs and Head of Delegation of the Dominican Republic, His Excellency Roberto Alvarez, for my nomination and for supporting me in assuming the presidency of this hemispheric forum, the most important forum in our region. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I'd like to make a very brief announcement, housekeeping, regarding the request for floor procedure. To request the floor, you press the button on your microphone, a green light will appear. That light indicates your request has been received. When granted the floor, the technician will activate your microphone and the light will turn red. Please note that if you press the button for a second time before being given the floor, this will cancel your request and you will lose your place in the queue. Again, that is a matter of housekeeping for which I thank you for observing. As the next item on the agenda and the order of business, and in accordance with provisions of Article 34 of the Rules of Procedure, we will now proceed with the adoption of the draft agenda for the 55th regular session of the General Assembly. This has been published as document AG/Doc 5874/25. In this regard, I would like to inform that the delegation of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, through a note distributed as a document AG/CP/INF 851/25, requested removal of the item report and discussion on the organization's financial health, which had previously been proposed by the same delegation from the draft of the General Assembly. With this in mind, I now consult whether we can proceed with the adoption of the agenda. Approved. We now turn our attention to item number 3 on the order of business, which concerns the adoption of the draft schedule of the 55th regular session of the General Assembly, document AG/Doc 5875/25. As you can see, the closing session is scheduled for 7 p.m. tomorrow evening, June 27th. I would therefore like to ask that the distinguished delegates, for your greatest possible cooperation, so that we can complete our consideration of all agenda items by that time. Please remember that under Article 15 of the General Assembly's Rules and Procedure, the President has the authority to make any adjustments necessary to the schedule under consideration. Since there are no further comments, the draft schedule of the 55th regular session of the General Assembly is adopted. We turn our attention to agenda item number 4. It is now our responsibility to formally adopt the agreements reached by the preparatory committee in advance of this 55th regular session. To this end, I now have the honor of giving the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Benoni Belli, the permanent representative of Brazil to the Organization of the American States and chair of the preparatory committee, who will present a report on the committee's work. Ambassador Belli, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Excellencies, heads of delegation, Mr. Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General, representatives of member states, permanent observers, and distinguished guests. As president of the preparatory committee, I will present a report on the activities undertaken for this 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. This report, shared as AG/5893/55, summarizes the work undertaken by the Preparatory Commission on the 15th of May to the 4th of June 2025, as well as in the regular session of the Permanent Council, acting as the Preparatory Commission on the 18th of June 2025. In keeping with the rules of the General Assembly, the committee prepared and approved the theme on the themes mandated by the previous decisions of the General Assembly. In addition, we incorporated proposals and contributions, cultural manifestations, and issues of great relevance for this moment of institutional transition. In addition to the agenda, the Commission approved the schedule for the sessions, which, while still flexible, will be the basis for our works in this regular session of the GA. The Commission also approved rules of procedure that were published as document AG/Doc 55. These directives are key to efficiently and effectively organize our work. Amongst the salient efforts agreed to, the duration of heads of delegation will be limited to 6 minutes in order to ensure broad participation and an exchange of views. For the presentation of proposals, the deadline will be 9 a.m. on the 24th of June. The recording of records will be presented in summary form. The use of the electronic system already agreed to for requesting the floor, as well as the establishing the order of precedence for the heads of delegation, the recording of the audiovisual record will be undertaken as a way of ensuring a record of our proceedings. and report of delegations in keeping with previously agreed rules. The order of precedence of delegations was randomly selected, and the United States and Turkey will preside the lists of member states as well as permanent observers. Mr. Chair, I would like to sincerely thank all delegations who worked in the preparation of our work. The constructive dialogue and spirit were key to arriving at this moment on a solid basis for a productive General Assembly. Thank you very much, and my thanks from my delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Having heard the report of the chair of the preparatory committee, I submit to the plenary for consideration the recommendations on procedures for the 55th regular session contained in document AG/doc 5876/25. I would like to point to the following matters addressed therein, requesting the distinguished delegates to bear them in mind until our work is completed. And these are: 1, in accordance with provisions of Article 18 of the General Assembly's Rules of Procedure, at plenary sessions, heads of delegations have a maximum of 6 minutes for the presentations. 2, the period for presenting new proposals related to the items on the agenda ended yesterday at 9 a.m. The Assistant Secretary General will report to the plenary on the proposals received before the end of that period. Thirdly, this 54th regular session of the General Assembly, which began yesterday, Wednesday, June 25th, is to conclude tomorrow, Friday, June 27th. Fourth, the minutes of the plenary sessions will be verbatim, and the minutes of the meetings of the General Committee will be summary minutes. 5, requests for the floor will follow the traditional order of requests through the average conference unit. And the dialogue of heads of delegation, the floor will be given according to the order of precedence established by a lot by the preparatory committee, which begins with the distinguished delegation of the United States. 6, the General Secretariat is further instructed to take the steps necessary to ensure that the voice recordings of all sessions and meetings held during this regular session are duly recorded, retained, and kept to be made available to the member states upon request. 7, the delegations may include footnotes to the declarations and resolutions, provided that they are expressly announced during the session at which those documents are considered. The period for forwarding footnotes to the Secretariat is the closing session. And number 8, the Secretariat will publish the volume of adopted declarations and resolutions, together with the footnotes received in due time after the close of session. Footnotes announced but not forwarded to the Secretariat before the closing session will be included in the volume but without their text. Those texts will be incorporated into the volume of declarations and resolutions adopted in due course by the Style Committee. There being objections, the procedural matters are adopted. Item 5, report of the Secretary General on credentials. With respect to the next item on our order of business, I would like to note that in accordance with the provisions of Article 27 of the Rules of Procedure, the Secretary General has submitted the corresponding report on the credentials of the delegations participating in this regular session. This report provides a record of the credentials received in due form from the delegations of member states and permanent observers, as well as those from representatives of the organs, agencies, and entities of the Inter-American System and other international organizations. Based on this report, the Secretariat will prepare the provisional list of participants, which will be made available to all delegations. After you take note of this report, Item 6, we shall now proceed with the presentation of the annual report of the Permanent Council for the period 2024-2025. It is therefore my honor to invite His Excellency Ambassador Benoni Belli, Permanent Representative of Brazil to the OAS and Chair of the Permanent Council, to take the floor. Ambassador Belli will present the report outlining the activities undertaken by the Permanent Council since the 54th regular session of the General Assembly in Asunción.
Obrigado, Senhor Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is our pleasure to present the annual report of the Preparatory Committee for the period of July 2024 to July 2025, distributed under AG 55789/25. And this faced significant challenges, but also relevant advances, always in keeping with mutual cooperation, values that sustain our work and are essential to the inter-American system. In this scenario of profound transformations, the Permanent Council reaffirmed its role as the permanent forum that would work to protect human rights, strengthen peace, and defend the rights of the peoples of the Americas. I point out the electoral process that resulted in that was carried out in a transparent manner and resulted in the election of Ambassador Albert Randin unanimously as Secretary General, and Ambassador Laura Gil elected as Assistant Secretary General in the 55th regular session, being the first woman elected to this role, representing the diversity and the richness of our organization. We also ratified the instruments of governance of the General Commission and a review of the Permanent Council's regulations presented by Antigua, Barbuda, Bolivia, and Brazil. This ensures the transparency of our collective work. Human rights have been at the center of our attention. We celebrated 65 years of the Inter-American Commission and 65 years of the Inter-American Convention, 65 years of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We carried out sessions on gender equality, fighting fake news, the historic memory and racial justice, commemorations of the International Day of Women, the Human Rights Day, as well as the Day for victims of slavery and transatlantic slave trade. The protection of the rights of Afro-descendants was also reaffirmed as a necessary effort. We have adopted a more sensitive and just hemispheric agenda. The situation of Haiti continues to be a priority. The Permanent Council accompanied the undertaking of efforts to find new solutions to protect the fundamental human rights of the Haitian people. In parallel fashion, we also reaffirmed our commitment to electoral process throughout the hemisphere through electoral observer missions that contribute to trust in our democratic institutions. Climate change also deserves special attention, with an emphasis on the raising sea levels for insular states, and the decision of the 16th of October called on a collective action facing this existential threat, which will require political will and multilateral cooperation. I also note the importance of this diplomatic moment, the session recognizing Deacon Mitchell, the Prime Minister of Grenada, at the request of Secretary General Luis Almagro in May of 2025, an extraordinary session for the assumption of his role as the new Secretary General. With responsibility, we face the delicate financial situation of our organization. The Permanent Council continues its vigilant oversight of these efforts. The preparation of the budget for 2025 was carried out in a transparent fashion, a frank dialogue with technical support of the Commission for Administrative and Budgetary Matters, to whom I express my sincere thanks. During this period, we held 50 formal sessions, consolidating our work as the most important political forum in our organization. 13 projects for draft resolutions and one resolution were adopted on the 18th of June. established in Addenda 2 and 3 of our report. Mr. Chair, I'd like to recognize the tireless efforts of permanent representatives and the President of the Council, Ambassador Tali Francis from Grenada, Ambassador Victor Fernandez of Barbados, Ambassador Lin Young from Belize, and Ambassador Hector Arce Saconeta of Bolivia. I extend my thanks to the Vice Presidents, Permanent Representatives of Guatemala, Ambassador Claudia Escobar Mejia of the United States, Ambassador Francisco Mora from El Salvador, Ambassador Wendy Acevedo, and currently Ambassador from Ecuador, Monica Palensi. I also note my deep gratitude to the Secretary General, the Assistant Secretary General, and the teams of the General Secretariat to further the objectives of the OAS, and I underscore the important role of permanent observer missions to strengthen hemispheric cooperation. I wish full success to the permanent representative of Canada to now head up the Permanent Council. Thank you. I count on your support.
Thank you, Ambassador Bailey, for that very complete and detailed presentation of this report, and for the draft resolutions agreed upon by the Permanent Council, which are now forwarded by the General Assembly, or to the General Assembly for consideration. As is evident, the report presented reflects the complex and intensive work carried out by the Permanent Council over recent months. On behalf of the General Assembly, I express my most profound and sincere appreciation to the Member States, permanent and alternate representatives, for their invaluable contributions to the development of this hemispheric agenda. I would like to recognize the efforts, dedication, and commitment of the permanent representatives of Grenada, Barbados, Belize, Bolivia, and currently Brazil, who have chaired the Permanent Council during this period. I would also like to place on record recognition to the permanent representatives of Guatemala, United States, El Salvador, and currently Ecuador, who have served as the Permanent Council's vice chairs. That said, I suggest the General Assembly take note of the annual report of the Permanent Council and then proceed to the adoption of the following draft resolutions, for which, based on the information Ambassador Bailey has just shared with us, consensus has now been reached. And these are: 1, draft resolution entitled Addressing the Critical Mental Health Crisis in the Americas; 2, draft resolution entitled Commemorating the Bicentennial of the Amphitheatonic Congress of Panama; 3, draft resolution entitled Hemispheric Commemoration of the 250th Anniversary of the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America; 4, draft resolution entitled Commemoration of the Bicentennial of the Independence of Bolivia; 5, draft resolution entitled Commemoration of the Bicentennial of the Independence of Eastern Republic of Uruguay, the Liberating Crusade and the Declaration of Independence of the Eastern Province; 6, draft resolution entitled Celebration of Spanish Language Week at the OAS; 7, draft resolution entitled Recognition of the Contributions of Pope Francis to Inter-American Values; 8, draft resolution entitled Advancing Hemispheric Initiatives on Integral Development; 9, draft resolution entitled Reaffirmation of Mandates and Establishment of a Mandate Management Mechanism; 10, draft resolution entitled Financing of the Program Budget of the Organization for 2026 and convening a special session of the General Assembly to consider and approve the program budget for 2026; and number 11, draft resolution entitled Amendment of Article 32(1) of the Statutes of Inter-American Defense Board regarding its headquarters. I now give the floor to delegations wishing to speak about the adopted declarations and resolutions. In that regard, I recognize the delegation of Paraguay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Haciendo referencia.
In reference to the resolution on mental health, obviously Paraguay supports the present resolution as also a policy of our government. We have, however, some considerations with certain terminology having to do with the organization, the Pan American Health Organization. We will be presenting a paragraph regarding that. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Paraguay. Noted. I give the floor to the delegation of Panama, of Guatemala, sorry, of Guatemala.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Guatemala wishes to explain our views having to do with addressing the critical mental health crisis of the Americas. May I do so at this time? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Guatemala is pleased to receive the future adoption of the resolution addressing the critical mental health crisis in the Americas, and appreciates the collective efforts making it possible for us to reach consensus on this. We reiterate our strong support for public policies that would be inclusive and based on human rights and human-centered, that will allow to strengthen human rights throughout the lifetime. Guatemala wishes to record that the present resolution will be applied in keeping with the political constitution of the Republic of Guatemala and our internal regulations. And in this regard, we also wish to note that the Republic of Guatemala protects and defends human rights of all persons without any form of discrimination, in keeping with our national legislation and international treaties that have been ratified by our country. This principle orients the institutional policies regarding human rights, regarding mental health, 2324, undertaken by the Ministry of Health of Guatemala, whose role and goal is to protect health of our population through community health services, with particular attention for those most vulnerable. Guatemala reaffirms its willingness to continue working with member states and our hemispheric partners to achieve sustainable cross-cutting efforts that will ensure the rights of all persons for the highest level of mental health care. Guatemala also requests the Secretary General to take note of our explanation of our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Guatemala. Noted. We give the floor now to the delegation of Panama.
Excelencias.
Excellencies, I have the honor of presenting on behalf of Panama the draft resolution that has to do with the commemoration of the Amphictyonic Congress of Panama. This is not just in keeping with a national interest. This is a collective affirmation of the values that bring us together as a hemisphere. In 1826, convoked by Libertador, the new American republics came together in Panama to forge an inter-American system based on our shared values, collective defense, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. This took place in our country, and this laid the foundations for the inter-American system, and that is what inspired the OAS Charter, the Inter-American Democratic Charter, and our noble aspirations to live in peace and mutual respect for sovereignty. And the commemoration of this bicentennial, we would like the organization to proclaim that in 2026, this is the Amphictyonic Congress of Panama. And this allows us to open up a space for reflection about the values proclaimed in Panama and that we reaffirm in the 21st century. This demands greater dialogue, integration, and cooperation. In the resolution that we have proposed to the entities of the organization, we ask everyone to participate in diplomatic, cultural, and academic activities that highlight the importance of commemorating the bicentennial of this Congress. Excellencies, Panama humbly assumes its responsibility as the cradle of inter-American values, and we commit to defending the values that came about in that historical meeting. Peace, the rule of law, as the foundation of international law. We hope that we have unanimous support of this Assembly to adopt this resolution that pays homage to our common history. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Panama. We recognize and give the floor to the delegation of St. Lucia.
Chair, fellow ministers, distinguished delegates, today St. Lucia takes the floor to endorse this resolution honoring the enduring moral and spiritual legacy of His Holiness Pope Francis. This resolution is more than a symbolic gesture. Rather, it reaffirms the kind of leadership our hemisphere needed and still needs. Leadership rooted in justice, centered on dignity, and unwavering in its commitment to peace. Pope Francis never shied away from speaking hard truths. He boldly addressed poverty, inequality, racism, environmental destruction, and the presiding throwaway culture that devalues human life. These are not just global challenges, but they speak pointedly to the current realities of the Americas, particularly for small developing states like St. Lucia. Pope Francis, through the Laudato Si, reframed the climate crisis as not merely a technical issue, but a moral imperative, one of intergenerational justice. Through his teachings, he emphasized the concept of fratelli tutti, that fraternity and social friendship are not unrealistic expectations, but are the very foundations for harmonious relations in a fractured world. A staunch advocate for the marginalized, Pope Francis stood with and for those on the peripheries with memorable declarations on issues such as migration, where he preferred that borders be seen as bridges and not barriers, referencing the plights of migrants fleeing violence and despair. His words, "Who are we to close doors?" remain quite relevant today in light of current geopolitical tensions. It is for these very reasons that today's resolution matters. It is a resolution that reaffirms the values we champion in the inter-American system, emphasizing that justice, equity, and respect for human rights are not abstract principles. Rather, they must guide our partnerships and policy makings. St. Lucia proudly supports this resolution because it aligns with who we are as a people, committed to faith, fairness, and the belief that leadership should serve, not dominate. We also acknowledge that Pope Francis was the first pontiff from the Americas. His Latin American heritage gave profound context to our region's struggles and its strengths. He proved that the Global South's voice belongs on a world stage and must never be silenced. Mr. Chair, let this resolution do more than honor Pope Francis's memory. Let it challenge us as governments, as representatives, as citizens, to lead with moral courage, to listen with humility, and to build a hemisphere worthy of all its people's dignity. St. Lucia is honored to stand in support. I thank you.
Thank you, St. Lucia. I now give the floor to the delegation of Uruguay.
President, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, delegations, it is an honor to present the draft resolution entitled Commemoration of the Bicentennial of the Independence of the Eastern Republic of Uruguay, the Liberating Crusade, and the Declaration of Independence of the Eastern Province. I wanted to share with you the reasons why we have presented this here at this multilateral forum. In 25 August, we will be celebrating the bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence of the Eastern Province, which took place at the Congress of Florida, with two other laws that were the foundations of the creation of our republic. And this was part of the Liberating Crusade and had to do with self-determination and winning independence. And so this resolution aspires to pay homage to an historical event, but also it has continental significance because our histories are interrelated. And 25 August 2025 will be a commemorative day of the bicentennial of the independence of the Eastern Republic, and we'd like to invite member states and permanent observers together with the General Secretariat to participate in the activities that we will be organizing. We'd like to reiterate our commitment to cooperation and regional integration, values that guided our liberators and which are still the basis of our efforts today. We trust that this resolution will have the unanimous support of all delegations, and we thank you all for your support of this important anniversary of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Uruguay. Delegation de Bolivia, adelante.
Muchísimas. Thank you so much, Brother President. I'd like to salute you on behalf of our ambassador of the OAS and of our president. On this occasion, we want to present the resolution for the commemoration of the bicentennial of our independence, the independence of Bolivia. Bolivia was born as an independent country on 6 August in 1825. But the origin of our peoples is millenary, and from time immemorable, native civilizations were created in our country, which then led to a culture that gave vision to the Amazonian cosmovision, which was ignored for centuries and has been recovered now and is the essence of the plurinational state of Bolivia, which was made possible through a transformation which is based on a vision that we have. We would like to evoke the courage of those who participated in independence revolutions, and we honor the memory of our Libertador, Simón Bolívar, General Sucre, and Mariscal Andrés de Santa Cruz. Chair, we believe that our bicentennial is an occasion to reflect on the Bolivia we dream of, but also a large meeting of minds from Latin America, the Andean region, the Amazon region, the Caribbean, what Simón Bolívar dreamt of. And so we are sure that we need to continue to go down this path to build a inclusive, plural society for all the peoples of the Americas and of the Caribbean. Above all, for indigenous peoples, Afro-descendants, young people, women, and the elderly, those who really forged the world that we live in now. In this historical era, we need to deepen our plurinational state based on a harmonious, fair, decolonized society without discrimination, without exploitation, without a patriarchy, with full justice for all. We want to continue to work to ensure the well-being, development, security, protection, and dignity of all persons, the nations of indigenous peoples and of campesino peoples. We want mutual respect. We want intercultural dialogue. This is absolutely necessary to address the challenges we face. Through this resolution, we highlight our history and our diverse culture, and also the values of our Libertador, the values of justice, which unite us with the brother countries of our region. We sincerely thank the member states for adopting this resolution to commemorate the bicentennial of the independence of our country. And you are all invited on August 6th to celebrate proudly 200 years of freedom, of a historical fight of our homeland, Bolivia. Everyone is welcome, and we will have our arms open to you. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Bolivia. I thank the delegations for your comments. We note your contributions, to include a footnote offered by Paraguay, and there be no further comments. We consider the aforesaid resolutions adopted. Before we proceed to the next item on the agenda, I wish to remind delegations that the draft declaration on the question of the Malvinas will be considered by the General Assembly at the 4th plenary session. Accordingly, we move to item 7. We continue work with the presentation by the Chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Her Excellency Ambassador Luan Gilchrist, Permanent Representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the OAS. Ambassador Gilchrist will provide us with a valuable insight into the activities and priorities of the city, a key organ of the OAS that plays a crucial role in promoting integral development in the Americas. Without any further ado, it pleases me to give the floor to Ambassador Gilchrist.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Secretary General Ramden, Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, permanent representatives and ambassadors, distinguished colleagues, excellencies, guests, good morning. I extend a special welcome to Secretary General Ramden, as this is the first occasion on which he's attending the General Assembly as Secretary General. I bid farewell to Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez in his final General Assembly as Assistant Secretary General. Chair, it is my privilege to represent the Inter-American Council for Integral Development to present CD's annual report together with the draft resolution advancing hemispheric initiatives on integral development. 6 months ago, as the permanent representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I assumed the chairmanship of the CD within decidedly altered regional and global contexts. At the time, I evoked CD's role in sharing perspectives and unearthing solutions to some of the most pervasive challenges in the hemisphere by bridging divides and inequalities throughout the Americas, coming together and connecting. Clearly, in spite of our differences, we face common circumstances
including expanding gaps between existing education systems and the needs of regional labor markets, worsening disparities between urban and rural areas, and a widening digital literacy and skills gap. In fact, ECLAC's April 2025 report on regional progress and challenges in relation to the 2020 Agenda for Sustainable Development paints a worrying picture that only 23% of the SDG targets will be met by 2030. In the face of this daunting prospect, the work of the OAS in defending democracy, human rights, security, and development must obey the pressing urgencies of our time and circumstances. In the context of these complex economic and geopolitical landscapes, the notions of resilience and inclusion assume increased relevance and urgency. Hence, the theme of this General Assembly, Building Resilient, Inclusive Economies in the Americas. Indeed, only by recognizing the interconnectedness and interdependence among all areas of our organization's work, and then by working hand in hand to move from dialogue to concrete action, can we jointly advance the prosperity and growth of our people. Herein lies the significance of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, which I have the distinguished honor of representing today. As the premier regional forum for political dialogue on development, CD is mandated to promote cooperation among the American states. In this spirit, CD, under the guidance and counsel of the Secretariat for Integral Development, convened 6 meetings on the need to build equitable and inclusive communities in the Americas to expand access and opportunities for all, closing gaps, reducing disparities, and bridging divides. I emphasize the gaps, disparities, and divides because the unequal capacity of our member states to respond to the unique challenges that matter most to them is a pervasive issue impacting the entire organization. Member states, no matter their size or relevance in the international system, must confront these ever-widening socioeconomic gaps if they are truly to build resilient and inclusive economies. Accordingly, over the last 6 months, targeted dialogue, diverse panel discussions, and relevant calls for action have reinforced CD's collective prioritization of substance over mere discourse. Since our last General Assembly, CD has hosted 3 impactful ministerial and high-level authorities meetings in the areas of labor, science and technology, and tourism. These are the 22nd Inter-American Conference of Ministers of Labor held in Bogotá, Colombia. It marked a new course for labor and employment policy dialogue and cooperation in the Americas, with the adoption of the Declaration and Plan of Action of Bogotá, the Future of Work in the Americas, laying the foundations for peace, social justice, and climate action. These documents reinforce a shared regional commitment to a fair, equitable, and human-centered future of work in the Americas. The second was the 7th meeting of ministers and high authorities on science and technology held in Washington, D.C. in December. It laid a meaningful foundation for sustained dialogue on the importance of governance, regulatory, and institutional AI frameworks, with the adoption of a declaration and plan of action on the development and deployment of safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence in the Americas. The outcome documents reflect the strong commitment of member states to capitalize better on the nexus of science, technology, and innovation as key drivers of the region's future economic and social development. Thirdly, the 26th Inter-American Congress of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Tourism, also held in Washington, D.C. in April of this year, reaffirmed regional commitment to sustainable development through heritage tourism, with the adoption of the Declaration and Plan of Action of Ecuador. Harnessing the power of heritage tourism for development in the Americas. Jointly, the outcome documents emphasize the growing role of heritage tourism in distributing more equitably the economic, sustainable, and social benefits of tourism. Looking ahead, as we work in the spirit of a united organization to close gaps, reduce disparities, and shrink divides, I encourage all member states to be present and to participate actively in these ministerials. I would like to recognize Ecuador for hosting the 12th Education Ministerial in March 2026 and Barbados the 14th meeting of the Inter-American Committee on Ports in June 2026. Chair, I've also had the distinct privilege of working closely with CD's Implementing Body and Technical Secretariat, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development. Both are deeply interconnected. SEDI works towards transforming the dialogue and regional consensus reached in CD into tangible progress. In turn, identifying and sharing solutions and promoting and expanding partnerships to deliver concrete development results across the Americas. SEDI's commitment in particular to strengthening the institutional and human capacities of member states accelerates efforts towards closing gaps, reducing disparities, and shrinking divides in the region. During the past year, SEDI has continued to do just that. Over the period, activities across key areas including education, labor, MSMEs, culture, science and technology, tourism, sustainable development, and port competitiveness focused on strengthening institutional and human capacities to support socioeconomic development and democratic governance in member states. Through cooperation and partnerships and the One SEDI approach, SEDI integrates cross-cutting priorities such as climate action into its programming nexus to advance integral development in the region. SEDI continues to engage with external stakeholders, most notably observer member states, the private sector, and academia, to broaden its reach through new partners for its language cooperation program, renewed agreements with development banks for its climate-related projects, and more thoughtful interaction with regional experts willing to provide technical assistance for South-South and triangular cooperation through CooperNet's Ask an Expert initiative. Upcoming ministerials and working group meetings in ports, education, and science and technology additionally emphasize SEDI's commitment to policy dialogue to amplify data-driven decision-making processes. In 2024, the Secretariat continued to lead its globally recognized approach to integrated water resources management program, mobilizing over $60 million in funding for member states and generating more than $12 million in direct assistance. It provided thousands of scholarships and millions in financial assistance to our region's learners in relevant areas of study. It strengthened port cooperation networks across the hemisphere to better weather the fluctuating demands of international trade. Given my limited time this morning, I regrettably cannot do full justice to the breadth and impact of SEDI's many projects and programs. I would therefore encourage you to review the comprehensive report circulated to member states for a more detailed overview of its progress and efforts. Chair, in closing, I extend gratitude to my Vice Chair, Ambassador Luis Ernesto Vargas, Permanent Representative of Colombia, and to the CD Chair from July to December 2024, Ambassador Elizabeth Darius-Clark, Permanent Representative of St. Lucia, whose sessions on trade facilitation, multi-destination travel, air connectivity, port modernization, and subnational competitiveness laid the thematic foundation for my own tenure. I extend my gratitude. I would like to extend my deep appreciation to the chairs of CD's permanent committees for their support and work over the past year, beginning with the chair of the management board of the IACD, Ambassador Luz Elena Baños Rivas of Mexico. I would also like to recognize and thank those member states which comprise the management board: Argentina, Brazil, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the United States, for their efforts to strengthen CD's core remit of regional cooperation and repositioning the OAS as a leader in South-South, horizontal, and triangular development cooperation. The chair of the Committee on Migration Issues, Ambassador Alejandra Solano Cabalceta, Permanent Representative of Costa Rica to the OAS, and the chair of the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies, Sebastian Fonseca, alternate representative of Ecuador to the OAS. They have my profound thanks. I would like to specially recognize SEDI's Executive Secretary Kim Osborne and offer my personal and professional appreciation for her leadership, guidance, and perspective over these last 6 months. I thank the team at the SEDI for their work. Finally, if I might speak directly to member states, to my colleagues at SEDI, and to all those with whom I have connected over the past 6 months, I offer my sincere gratitude to you for supporting the work of this Council and, in turn, the continued socio-economic development of the Americas. We gather at a time of great divide, of a disconnect that is of great concern, between and amongst our countries, our communities, and ourselves. But we must set aside our differences and continue to forge ahead in that time-tested spirit of cooperación solidaria. Our work is too important, our challenges too great and too interconnected, and our realities too complex to forego that spirit. We can only move forward as a region and as an organization by working collectively, closing gaps, reducing disparities, and shrinking divides. In the days ahead, let us share our perspectives. Let us unearth solutions and find meaningful connection as we take charge of our shared mission of advancing inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development in the hemisphere. I thank you for the courtesy of your attention.
Ambassador Gilchrist, on behalf of the General Assembly, I extend our sincere appreciation for your presentation. Allow me to make special recognition of the effort, dedication, and commitment of the permanent representatives of St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and currently St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who have served as chair of SEDI during this reporting period. I would also wish to recognize the permanent representatives of Dominica, Costa Rica, and currently Colombia for their efforts as vice chairs of this council. SEDI's leadership and commitment to the integral development of the Americas has been exemplary. Thanks to his dedication and efforts, SEDI has strengthened his role as a key organ of the OAS in promoting partnership for development among member states. We turn our attention to agenda item 8. Where pursuant to Articles 22 and 24 of the Rules of Procedure, it is now time to install the General Committee, which will be composed of representatives of all member states participating in this General Assembly. There being no comments, the General Assembly, or General Committee, of the 55th regular session of General Assembly is hereby installed. At item 9, we move along to the assignment of topics and election of officers of the General Committee. And in accordance with the agreements reached and recommendations made by the Permanent Council at its last regular meeting on June 18th, following its work at the OAS headquarters, in preparation for this regular session, the General Committee will be responsible for reviewing the draft resolutions that did not reach consensus in Washington. I ask that we note that negotiations will focus solely on those paragraphs with comments, reservations, or that have not yet received consensus from the delegations. Additionally, the General Committee may consider any draft submitted after June 18th, the date of the last Permanent Council meeting, and before 9 a.m. of yesterday, Wednesday, June 25th. This in accordance with the established deadlines. Accordingly, I'm pleased at this time to give the floor to Assistant Secretary General, Ambassador Nestor Mendez, who will provide us with information on documents that are in the situations described above. In that context, Ambassador Mendez, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished ministers and heads of delegation of member states, Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the resolutions that have just been approved by this plenary, the Permanent Council has considered 2 draft resolutions for which consensus has not yet been fully achieved. Certain paragraphs remain under discussion and therefore require further consideration by the member states. Accordingly, the Permanent Council transmitted these resolutions to this General Assembly with the recommendation that they be referred to the General Committee for further consideration. The draft resolutions are as follows. Number 1, draft resolution entitled Calling for Concrete Solutions to be Brought to Bear as a Matter of Urgency to Resolve the Grave Security and Institutional Crisis in Haiti, document AG/Doc 5882/25. For this draft resolution, 24 paragraphs have been agreed upon by the Permanent Council, and 7 paragraphs received comments from a delegation and are recommended for consideration by the General Committee. Number 2, draft resolution entitled Establishment of a Credentials Committee for Organs of the Organization of American States, document AG/Doc 5888/25. For this draft resolution, 11 paragraphs were agreed upon by the Permanent Council. 1 paragraph received comments and requires further consideration, and 7 paragraphs have not yet been considered and remain pending. It is recommended that the General Committee reviews the paragraphs with comments and the 7 pending paragraphs. Mr. President, I also wish to inform the plenary that these are the only 2 documents that have been transmitted to the General Committee, as no additional documents were received prior to the deadline for the submission of new proposals, which expired yesterday, June the 25th at 9 a.m. This concludes the report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Secretary General, for your report. Delegates, as you have heard from the Assistant Secretary General, the General Committee has a specific mandate and a limited time frame in which to do its work. I would therefore like to remind the delegations that the General Committee must conclude its work tomorrow before the start of the 4th plenary sessions. That is to say, by no later than 3 p.m. To facilitate the General Committee's work, a rapporteur will be elected from among its members, who will be responsible for submitting to this plenary a detailed report on the results of the tasks assigned to the committee. That report, in accordance with the provisions of Article 25 of the Rules of Procedure, is to include a summary of the discussions held in the General Committee, the conclusions reached regarding each of the draft resolutions, and the General Committee's recommendations to the plenary of the General Assembly. I am confident the General Committee will discharge its tasks efficiently and effectively, and that its report will be a valuable contribution to the deliberations of this plenary. I offer the delegations that will partake in the work of the General Committee my advance thanks for their dedication and for their commitment. Let us now proceed to the election of the chair of the General Committee. In that regard, I now give the floor to distinguished delegations for nominations. I recognize the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief. Antigua and Barbuda is pleased to nominate for the chairmanship of the General Committee the distinguished ambassador of Brazil, Benono Belli, who has served us well as the chair of the Permanent Council over the last 3 months, and who's also served in the work that we've been doing in Washington in the preparatory committee. There can be no better person than to guide us through the work of the General Committee that is before us and to bring it to a successful conclusion. We have great pleasure in nominating Ambassador Benono Belli. Thank you.
Thank you, Antigua Barbuda. I recognize the delegation of Bolivia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Chair. the plurinational state of Bolivia also sees it appropriate to address the issue of the presidency of the General Committee and to do so in support of Ambassador Belli of Brazil to lead this committee because of his great experience. We also always value the contribution of our neighboring country, Brazil, a country that has worked so much to the integration of the Americas, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Who better than our colleague, Ambassador Belli, who with this vast experience will ably lead the committee. We cannot speak of progress and achieve integration if we do not have this leadership based on multilateralism and a unified effort of our regions to give us results of what we all dream of a real level of integration, of a true participation. This reminded me, as I was commenting with Brother of Panama, where we will celebrate 200 years, and who was the leader of that effort? Simón Bolívar. And we continue in those footsteps. Our support for the Ambassador of Brazil. Thank you.
I am pleased, therefore, to announce that Ambassador Benoni Belli, permanent representative of Brazil to the OAS, has been elected chair of the General Committee. As heads of delegations know, the election of the vice chair and rapporteur will take place during the General Committee's first meeting, which will begin immediately in the Flex Room. In the meantime, I kindly remind all distinguished representatives that the dialogue of heads of delegation will commence shortly. I thank you.
Make your way over to the Flex Room. We are about to start the dialogue of heads of delegation. Señoras y señores.
Ladies and gentlemen, we request kindly to all delegates who need to commence the work of the General Committee to make your way to the building nearby, to the Flex Auditorium there. We will begin now the dialogue of heads of delegation in this Assembly Hall.
It is my honor to open the dialogue of heads of delegation on the central theme of this regular session of the General Assembly. This is proposed by the Antigua-Barbuda government and acknowledged by the Permanent Council through Resolution 1279, entitled Building Resilient, Inclusive Economies in the Americas.
There's too much noise.
Colleagues, we are about to commence a dialogue. As we open the dialogue, I must note that so far we've been very efficient with time and encourage us to continue this good habit with our adherence to the agreed time allocations of 6 minutes per presentation. Without further ado, I will yield the floor to the first speaker on the list of precedents, organized in alphabetical order in Spanish, as established by the preparatory committee. I'm therefore pleased to now offer the floor to the head of delegation of the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary General Ramdeen, ministers, ambassadors, colleagues, it's an honor to address you today on behalf of the United States of America. Let me begin by thanking the government and the people of Antigua and Barbuda for hosting this assembly in their beautiful country and for their warm hospitality. It's great to be back in the Caribbean, which has been inextricably intertwined with my own country throughout our history. In fact, one of my country's most prominent founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, was born on the nearby island of Nevis. The success of the United States can be attributed in part to this one man's genius. On behalf of the United States of America and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I'm pleased to extend our congratulations to the new Secretary General of this organization, Albert Ramdeen. Secretary General Ramdeen, we certainly hope that your tenure proves successful and that we'll be able to work together to make our entire Western Hemisphere safer, stronger, and more prosperous, which is what we're trying to do in our own country as well. I think you're all aware that this hemisphere is a special priority for both Secretary Rubio and me. In fact, when the Secretary and I first discussed the possibility of my serving as Deputy Secretary after the election last November, he asked me if there were any reason that I thought we might not make a good team. I truthfully answered that he was a Western Hemisphere guy and I was a Western Hemisphere guy, so maybe he'd be better off with someone with a specialty in another part of the world, like the Middle East or East Asia. He shook his head and said it was exactly the opposite. He was concerned that his duties might pull him to other parts of the world and wanted to make sure that we didn't take our eye off this hemisphere, so that the fact that he and I had the same regional focus was actually a plus and not a minus. So I sit before you here today to reaffirm our commitment to the hemisphere as someone who grew up not just in my own country, but also in Canada, Paraguay, Chile, and Venezuela, and most recently lived in Mexico. And I always feel an obligation to recognize and thank the great nation of Colombia, which gave refuge to my father's family when they fled their native Austria in the dark days before World War II, and to note that my own grandparents are buried outside of Bogota. Secretary Rubio and I very much hope that we can count on this organization as a valuable partner. As some of you may know, the United States was a driving force behind the first Pan American Conference, which convened in Washington, D.C. in 1889. We can talk about the Congress of Panama some other time. That conference took place just a dozen years after the ill-fated French intervention in Mexico and focused on fostering commerce, addressing boundary disputes, and preventing external interference in the hemisphere. It led to the creation of the International Union of American States, which in turn became the Pan American Union in 1910, and eventually the OAS in 1948. So we recognize and respect that this organization has deep roots that extend back almost 150 years. But at the same time, we must ask ourselves how the organization remains relevant today and whether it's achieving its lofty and noble goals. Article 1 of the OAS Charter states that member states establish the organization, quote, to achieve an order of peace and justice, to promote their solidarity, to strengthen their collaboration, and to defend their sovereignty, their territorial integrity, and their independence, unquote. Can we really say that the organization is succeeding in these goals today? We in the United States government are currently reviewing that very question. As you may be aware, President Trump issued an executive order in the first days of this administration directing the Secretary of State within 6 months to review all international organizations of which the United States is a member, to determine whether such membership is in the interest of the United States and whether such organizations can be reformed. Upon the conclusion of that review, the Secretary must report his findings to the President and recommend whether the U.S. should withdraw from any such organization. That review remains ongoing, and the OAS is obviously one of the organizations we're reviewing. To be quite frank, and I'm a very frank person, I'm not sure I can predict how that review will turn out. That's certainly something I'm open to discussing at this meeting, so no one can say they're surprised. Let's look at some of the relevant cases. Last year, the entire world witnessed a brazenly stolen election in Venezuela. The opposition not only won overwhelmingly, but had the evidence to prove it, the actas. The regime didn't even bother seriously to dispute the validity of the actas or the electoral fraud. In response to that brazen electoral fraud, what has this organization done? As far as we can tell, nothing of substance. The Chavez-Maduro regime has taken Venezuela from one of the most prosperous nations in our hemisphere to one of the most wretched, subjecting its people to abject poverty and political repression and leaving millions with little choice but to flee. Many, if not most, of the nations represented around this table are home to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of Venezuelan refugees. As recently as last month, the Venezuelan regime ran another sham legislative and regional election that lacked transparency and fairness and included a controversial vote purporting to elect Venezuelan representatives to govern Guyana's Essequibo state. If this organization is unwilling or unable to respond to or remedy the situation, where a regime openly thumbs its nose at international norms and threatens the territorial integrity of its neighbor, then we must ask what's the point of the organization. Similarly disheartening is the ongoing crisis in Haiti. Armed gangs control the streets and ports of the capital city, and public order there has all but collapsed. While Haiti descends into chaos, the unfolding humanitarian, security, and governance crisis reverberates across the region. And again, what has this organization done? Right now, a basic modicum of security is provided by a Kenyan-led multilateral force blessed by the UN. The United States has committed almost $1 billion to this force. We commend the deployment of security force personnel and other contributions from some of the nations represented in this room that made the mission possible. But the United States cannot continue shouldering this heavy financial burden. That's why the United States welcomes a role for the OAS in responding to the political crisis in Haiti. Again, if the OAS is unwilling or unable to play a constructive role in Haiti, then we must seriously ask ourselves why the OAS exists. And just let me be clear, I'm not bringing up Venezuela and Haiti to point a finger of blame. Rather, I'm here to extend a hand of friendship to this organization and anyone who will take it. But friendship is a two-way street. Secretary Rubio and I have to be able to tell our president and our people that our substantial investment in this organization benefits our country. I'm not sure that we're in a position to do that right now, and I'm asking you in good faith to help me make that case. Frankly, I'm afraid that at least some member states, and perhaps even some outside observers, see this organization as a forum to needle the United States. I regret that, as this organization, at least theoretically, can play a valuable role in improving the economic, social, and political conditions for all the people of this hemisphere. Everyone's always talking about the Asian tiger economies, but as we all seek to build more resilient supply chains in our hemisphere, I'd love to help channel U.S. capital towards the rest of the region to develop Western Hemisphere jaguar economies. I sincerely hope that we can have some tangible signs of interest in engaging constructively with the United States in this forum. In this regard, we've nominated Rosa Maria Payá to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. In order to achieve credibility and success, the Commission must prioritize the gravest and most urgent human rights abuses and violations, especially where domestic remedies are unavailable. Rosa Maria Payá is a principled advocate for democracy and human rights. Her moral clarity, principled conviction, and lived experience make her an ideal voice for this body. On behalf of the United States and Secretary Rubio personally, I urge member states to vote for her in tomorrow's election. Colleagues, this is not a time for mere words and slogans about hemispheric solidarity. It's time for the OAS to show results. Let's stand with the people of Venezuela and Haiti, not just in word, but in deed. Let's reject authoritarian and anti-democratic regimes and those that seek to pursue political vendettas through the judicial process. Let's affirm our sovereign right to secure our borders, uphold democratic norms, and strengthen this organization through action, not rhetoric. The bottom line is that the United States is uniquely positioned at this juncture to be an active partner in the hemisphere. We'd like this organization to be part of the solution, not the problem, and look forward to constructive engagement over the next 2 days and beyond. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigado. Merci.
I thank the United States and recognize our second contribution from the delegation of Grenada.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished Ministers of Foreign Affairs, esteemed heads of delegation, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a moment of regional pride to address this 55th General Assembly of the Organization of American States, convened in beautiful Antigua and Barbuda. On behalf of the government and people of Grenada, I extend sincere thanks to Prime Minister Gaston Brown and the people of Antigua and Barbuda for the excellent arrangements and gracious hospitality. It is especially meaningful that this assembly, focused on shaping our collective future, is held on Caribbean soil, a testament and recognition of the enduring strength of regional cooperation in CARICOM. I also extend heartfelt congratulations to His Excellency Albert Ramdin on assuming the post of Secretary General. His election marks a milestone for the Caribbean and presents an opportunity for the OAS to be guided by inclusive leadership attuned to the realities of our small states and the wider hemisphere. Mr. President, the theme of this assembly, building resilient, inclusive economies in the Americas, resonates deeply with Grenada's national priorities and aspirations of the Caribbean. This is not an abstract theme. It is a lived imperative. Like many of our neighbors, Grenada is grappling with the harsh realities of climate vulnerability. Just last year, in fact, Hurricane Beryl struck our region with devastating force, again exposing the fragile intersection between climate shocks and economic resilience. As our Prime Minister, Honorable Dickon Mitchell, has said, we are not seeking sympathy, we are seeking partnership, a fair, meaningful partnership to confront climate change, access financing, and protect the lives and cultures of those on the front lines of a crisis not of our making. Resilient economies require bold international cooperation and the realization of climate justice. We need sustained support for adaptation, resilient infrastructure, and early warning systems, delivered not as charity, but as a matter of global fairness and shared responsibility. Equally important is inclusion. Economic growth cannot be counted as success if it bypasses the marginalized. Grenada's development strategy emphasizes human capital, digital transformation, and social protection. We aim to empower women and youth, support rural communities, and ensure that resilience is rooted in people and not just policies. Mr. President, the Caribbean has shown time and again that small states united can shape large outcomes, whether in disaster response, climate advocacy, or food security. The OAS plays a crucial role in amplifying these regional efforts and promoting shared solutions across the hemisphere. This includes urgently support for the people of Haiti. Their suffering must not be or become normalized. Grenada calls for sustained and coordinated efforts to support Haiti's transition from humanitarian catastrophe to a path of peace and legitimacy guided by Haitians. This call goes out particularly to those who have historically benefited from the subjugation and exploitation of the Haitian people. Grenada reaffirms its principled stance on international relations, grounded in mutual respect for sovereignty and non-intervention, regardless of size, political or economic weight, or military prowess. These tenets have allowed us to expand diplomatic ties and mobilize resources essential to our development. In this context, we underscore the importance of deepening South-South cooperation as a vital dimension of the inter-American system. The OAS Charter enshrines cooperation as a pathway to peace and development. South-South initiatives through technical, economic, and trade collaboration offer powerful tools to fulfill that vision. For small states like ours, these partnerships are not aspirational, they are essential. In this spirit of solidarity, Grenada expresses our deep appreciation to the government and people of Cuba for the continued support, particularly through the medical professionals who serve our communities with distinction. This enduring partnership exemplifies the real benefits of respectful South-South cooperation. Looking ahead, Grenada reaffirms its commitment to the principles and promises of the inter-American system. Let us use this assembly not only to articulate policy, but to take action. Together, we can build a hemisphere that is more just, more inclusive, and more resilient to the forces that test our unity and resolve. I thank you.
I thank you, Grenada. I now invite the delegation of Guatemala.
Honorable Foreign Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished foreign ministers, heads of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, a fraternal salute from our Foreign Minister Martinez, who unfortunately cannot be with us today. We would like to thank the government of Antigua and Barbuda for its warm welcome, which characterizes this Caribbean nation. And we congratulate the new Secretary General, and we believe under him the OAS will continue to strengthen multilateralism and regional cooperation. In Guatemala, we are promoting an economic, social, and political and democratic transformation, which is inclusive and which no one is left behind. Policies that our government is promoting have an approach which include important values like education, decent housing, health, mental health, and includes values like non-discrimination and others for all Guatemalans in keeping with our domestic legislation and international treaties our country has ratified. The respect and promotion of human rights is a cross-cutting part of our foreign policy. We have ongoing collaboration with the Inter-American System of Human Rights. Last July, we received an on-site visit of the Inter-American Commission, and we are awaiting its final report in order to comply with its recommendations. We also value the decision to exclude us from Chapter 4B of the Commission's annual report. This shows the renewed efforts on our part to respect human rights. We also celebrated the session of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which reaffirmed our support of constructing inter-American jurisprudence. Democracy in Guatemala has been affirmed by our citizens, and the support of the OAS has been key during this process. We thank the OAS for its support of the general elections that took place in 2022, and also in the selection of judges to the Supreme Court and appeals courts. The presence of the Electoral Observation Mission strengthened citizens' trust in the rule of law in keeping with the Inter-American Democratic Charter. The fight against corruption is a national priority, and in this framework, Guatemala has created a commission against corruption, which is pushing laws such as beneficial ownership and others in order to promote transparency in amongst government workers. Chair, we have integrated responses to ensure security in the region, and we celebrate the Central American DR roadmap to stop the proliferation of illegal arms and munitions. And I am happy to announce that we will be the host of the 5th meeting on the heads of prisons and other penal institutions. This reflects our commitment to the hemisphere to ensure peace and security with shared responsibility and active solidarity. I'd also like to refer to the support of the OAS to the adjacent zone between Guatemala and Belize. The office there has empowered local communities and has promoted bilateral dialogue. President Arevalo has said that Guatemala and Belize are committed to international law and shows our respect for the peaceful route to create trust between both parties. Honorable representatives, in a global context in which we see increasing conflicts, transborder phenomena affect us. We are attentive to what's happening in Haiti, and we hope that the UN will continue to give support to the MSS mission. We have 150 troops in Haiti under this mission. We are committed to helping Haiti under the values of solidarity and a commitment to peace and democracy in our region. To conclude, just allow me to tell you that we want a renewed, proactive OAS that is focused on people, one that leads to democratic transformation, and one that can be agile and nimble. We want an independent organization and one that firmly defends its values: democracy, peace, integral development, human rights, an organization that prevents threats and also supports our peoples on their right and righteous path. Thank you.
Guatemala, we now invite the delegation of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to make presentation.
Mr. Chairman, honorable ministers of foreign affairs, heads of delegations, permanent representatives, permanent observers, Secretary General Ambassador Albert Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General Ambassador Nestor Mendez, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, Mr. Chairman, the opportunity to join colleagues who spoke before me in welcoming and acknowledging the presence of Secretary General Albert Ramdin, who is participating in its very first General Assembly at the helm of our organization. We look forward to working with you, Secretary General, to deliver on the promise of the OAS for the peoples of the Americas. Today, we address the aptly chosen theme of building resilient, inclusive economies in the Americas. This theme underpins our efforts to bring peace, prosperity, and the enhancement of the well-being of the peoples of the Americas. However, its application overall will mean something different for each of our countries. There is much, however, that we can learn from each other in this regard, and even more that we should do together to build a secure, resilient, and sustainable future for our people. Our states face common but differentiated challenges. Small island developing and low-lying coastal states like Guyana face a myriad of challenges tied to vulnerabilities related to climate change, exogenous shocks, security, and the ever-changing face of transnational crime, including the proliferation and use of small arms and light weapons, and most importantly, access to financing and to the larger world markets. Climate change and its impacts, including rising sea levels, heightened frequency and severity of extreme weather events, and increased food insecurity, pose unprecedented threats to building resilient economies. To build the resilience needed to effectively adapt and respond to climate crisis, small states must have the fiscal space and access to climate financing. Mr. Chairman, as many of you know, Guyana faces a specific threat to its sovereignty and territorial integrity from Venezuela laying in 1962 an ongoing spurious claim to 5/8 of Guyana's territory, despite the full, final, and binding arbitral award of 1899, which delimited the land boundary between our two states and which we all respected until 1962. This claim and the continued actions of the Venezuelan government in furtherance thereof, in violation of the most fundamental principles of international law, affect and seek to thwart Guyana's ongoing efforts to expand socio-economic growth and development across our country. Today, while the countries of the Americas are away from the physicality of the global conflicts well known to us, we are susceptible to the consequences given the interconnected world in which we live today. However, amid ever-shifting geopolitical tensions, Guyana remains committed to advocating and safeguarding our region as a zone of peace. Guyana, in addressing the issue of poverty, underdevelopment, and conflict at the UN Security Council High-Level Open Debate, which was chaired on June 19, 2025 by our Foreign Minister, Hugh Todd, pointed to the need to confront some of the fundamental issues which impact the building of resilient and inclusive economies. The lack of economic opportunities, lack of access to education, unemployment and exclusion, and the need to strengthen national institutions as part of peace-building efforts, including those institutions that foster social and economic development. It is imperative for us as a collective to remain invested in securing the peaceful, sustainable development of the peoples of the Americas. The responsibility lies with our states to strive for national, regional, and international conditions which foster resilient and inclusive economies. Guyana intends to use its Vision 2030 development plan as a platform to drive major infrastructure projects, education and skills development so as to equip its workforce for emerging industries and the digital economy, support for small and medium enterprises, social protection and poverty reduction, and environmental sustainability. Our efforts to do this would depend inter alia on collaboration, cooperation, and peace and stability in the hemisphere and across our globe. These must be underpinned by dialogue, diplomacy, and a commitment to multilateralism, which offers small states a much-needed umbrella under which they can advocate and negotiate matters of hemispheric and global concern. Guyana places high value on multilateralism and the role of the OAS as the premier organization for constructive dialogue and cooperation in our hemisphere. We continue to reaffirm our commitment to the 4 pillars of the OAS: democracy, human rights, integral development, and multidimensional security. In this same vein, Guyana recognizes the need for our OAS to be fit for purpose, to assist in meeting the needs of member states and bolstering the aspirations of every citizen of the Americas. To do this, we must remain open, transparent, and accountable. We must respond to sister states which need and request our assistance. We must focus our efforts on Haiti and delivering much-needed relief to the people of Haiti in the multifaceted crisis that they are facing. For Guyana, the OAS continues to play a distinct role in entrenching the traditions of democracy and democratic institutionalization in the country. To this end, we look forward to welcoming an OAS electoral observer mission as our people prepare to head to the polls on September 1st. Guyana is also keen on contributing to the advancement of regional institutions and looks forward to serving in this regard. I therefore take this opportunity to announce that the government of Guyana has submitted the candidature of the suitably qualified and experienced Dr. Mohammed Ibrahim to serve as the next Director General of the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, IICA, at elections by the Inter-American Board of Agriculture to be held by November 3rd, 5th, 25. We will be seeking and hope to count on the support of your respective governments in the coming days. I thank you.
Thank you, Guyana. I now offer the floor to the head of delegation of Haiti.
Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, foreign ministers, ambassadors, heads of delegation, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great fraternity and brotherhood that I take the floor at this 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States, which is here on this welcoming island, Antigua and Barbuda, on behalf of the Presidential Transitional Council, presided over by Fritz Alphonse, to thank the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda, especially Prime Minister Gaston Brown, for the warm welcome and the hospitality of my delegation. I would also like to once again congratulate Secretary General Ramdeen as the first Caribbean Secretary General and the Assistant Secretary General-elect as the first woman Assistant Secretary General. The election of these two figures is an advancement of this organization. Chair, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, the topic that brings us together here at this 55th Regular General Assembly, building resilient, inclusive economies in the Americas, is very important for all countries in the region and especially the island nations of the Caribbean. And this is a clear vision of the future, building a resilient future that includes the most vulnerable in the economy. In order to implement this common vision, we must strengthen our capacities to respond all of the challenges we are facing in the region. The climate crisis, the natural disasters we're facing, the lack of potable water, the lack of food, and the risks of famine for some people, as well as abject poverty. These are urgent challenges that we must address urgently. My country, the Republic of Haiti, is vulnerable to all of these challenges. Indeed, we are facing the consequences of all of them because of multiple crises that have hit my country. And so my delegation would like to contribute to all continental initiatives, sustainable development, in keeping with the resolution adopted at the OAS in the framework of the Council on Integral Development. Secretary General, Chair, as you already know, Haiti is facing a multidimensional crisis without precedent. This crisis affects all aspects of life and undermines public security. It is a humanitarian crisis, an institutional crisis. With respect to public security, the violence of gangs for decades has led to the murder of hundreds of citizens. It has shut down universities and schools. They have destroyed hospitals. They have ransacked our businesses, large and small. There is no one who is immune from this. They are kidnapping people. They have vandalized public buildings, including the police buildings, including the Supreme Court. They are pillaging. They have liberated prisoners from correctional institutions, including dangerous criminals who are now on the street. We even have armed criminals on the street, which have made the humanitarian crisis worse. We have 1.3 million people who are displaced. Women and youth are subject to all kinds of abuses. This barbarism has brought about consequences for the economy, and half of our population is facing famine. Nevertheless, given these difficulties, we have to salute the courage of our national police and also our armed forces have shown their devotion to their mission to protect and to serve our people. We ask member states and permanent observers to contribute to strengthening the capacity of our public security forces, and we want to express our gratitude. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General, the situation that I just described, even though it is very dark, is not our destiny. We believe that political efforts and more means will allow us to come out of this. We see that there is light. The Republic of Haiti appeals to OAS to unite efforts with all partners to be able to focus on the security, humanitarian, and institutional challenges we are facing as a priority, because it is urgent, and these should be defined by our authorities. Chair, we request partners for Haiti. We want specific commitments at all levels and to execute a plan to reverse the security situation. We want to stop our territory being used as a point of illegal arms trafficking and drug trafficking, which is destabilizing our country. The situation that prevails in Haiti is a specific example of the disastrous consequences of transnational organized crime, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and other kinds of illicit trafficking. Today, no country is immune from these scourges. And at the OAS, we must be coordinated, effective. We must be decisive. Chair, Secretary General, the Republic of Haiti is thrilled to see Secretary General Ramdin elected, because we know that for him, Haiti is a priority. And given these prospects, we believe that Haiti can have a solid strategy that will strengthen operational capacities of our law enforcement, supported by the MSS mission. And that at the same time, we appreciate the OAS's engagement to manage humanitarian assistance and help migrants, to facilitate dialogue between Haiti and other member states, and their support for mechanisms to help our migrants. Secretary General, Chair, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by thanking the countries in our hemisphere who are also supporting our MSS mission to seek a resolution to this crisis. I appeal to all member states and permanent observers of this organization to help us overcome our security crisis and to help us to create conditions where we can have elections. I thank you.
Thank you, Haiti. We will entertain our final presentation before the luncheon interval. And in that regard, I will invite the head of delegation of Honduras to make his presentation.
President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Mr. Assistant Secretary General, distinguished delegates, initially we would like to express our sincere thanks to our host for their incredible hospitality, for allowing us to come together here to reflect this honorable assembly. Well, you should know that we can have another kind of hemisphere, one based on justice, solidarity, and respect for human rights. Chair, under the leadership of Xiomara Castro, Honduras undertook an important role in CELAC, promoting an agenda of integration, inclusive and progressive, and very clear, and its appeal to strengthen South-South mechanism, to strengthen multilateralism and strengthening of CELAC in order to address urgent challenges. In this forum, we have promoted Latin American integration as an alternative to unilateral impositions and as a platform to amplify the voices of our peoples. Aware that corruption has been one of the most important hurdles to the development in our country, in Honduras, we are intensely reconstructing our institutions, and despite opposition of some political sectors, we want to install an international commission against corruption and impunity in Honduras to show our unflagging commitment to transparency and accountability and the rule of law. Not only is it the idea of punishing those who have been involved in corruption, rather building a future where we have public servants who are serving the people and not their own interests. Chair, at the heart of our policy are human beings. So from the first day of our government, we have prioritized reparations to those that suffered from violation of human rights or violations of their rights by institutions of the state. We have been defending the defenders of human rights, those who are defenders from indigenous peoples and the LGBTI sector. We know that this is not enough to give legal certainty. We also need to give education, health, decent work, and other things in order to protect human rights and the inter-American system. We have presented the candidacy of Dr. Reina Joya, who is a professional with a long experience in the sector, and so we request that you consider her candidacy. With respect to human mobility, this is an historical phenomena in our region. Honduras is a country of origin, of destination, and of transit, of people who are looking for a new life. Our focus is based on human rights and international law. We are working so that immigration is an option, not something that is mandatory. How are we doing this? We are addressing the lack of opportunities, the climate crisis. Thus, we ask the destination countries to treat our sisters and brothers who are migrants without stigmatizing them, without criminalizing them. You cannot solve the problem of migration with walls. You can only do it with shared responsibilities. With respect to the climate crisis, this is an existential crisis we are facing. Honduras, like many countries in the South, is the victim of a predatory model which has led to deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and extreme weather events. Climate justice, therefore, demands that those who pollute more take on their responsibilities. And so in our administration, we have been trying to prioritize the protection of our basins, our forests, and other areas, as well as those people who live there, and protect those areas. This year, we will be called again to have elections. We are developing the process so that we have free, transparent, and inclusive elections. The participation of national and international observers will be welcome, because we believe that we have strong democratic institutions. The National Electoral Council has been strengthened and bolstered, and we are taking all measures to prevent fraud, as we saw in the past. We believe that our elections will reaffirm the will of our people. And finally, we reiterate our support for the self-determination of people. This is a building block of international law. No nation should impose its will on another under pretext of security or the fight against criminality or for economic interest. We reject all types of blockade or interventions, and we support the peaceful resolution of disputes based on mutual respect. Honduras looks for partners that support us with dignity to build a more just, free, and sovereign America, not those that are going to impose their will on us. It is high time that peoples are the center. We want to build together with you a more humane and hopeful hemisphere. We face enormous challenges, but we have the determination to overcome. And as our President Xiomara Castro said in SELAC, peace, democracy, social justice, are conquered with unity and with valor. Thank you very much.
For your presentation. Esteemed colleagues, if we agree, I would like to suggest that the plenary session take note of the important presentations made so far by the heads of delegations, and that they be duly recorded in our minutes. The presentation still pending will be given during the second plenary session, scheduled to resume at 3 o'clock today in this very room, at which time we'll begin with the delegation of Jamaica. As we get ready to recess for lunch, it is also time to take the official photograph. And in order to ensure that we all arrive at the venue or location for the photograph, we ask that all heads of delegation depart the conference room via the door, which is at the very end of this building. That's to my right. We'll walk over together to the front of the main campus for the photograph before departing for the head of delegation private luncheon. We ask that during this time, the +1 who will accompany the head of delegation to the luncheon move to your respective delegations' vehicles and wait there. Immediately after taking the photograph, all heads of delegation vehicles will leave or depart in a convoy for the luncheon, which is scheduled to take place at Sandals Grand Hotel. It therefore leaves me with no other duty or function at this stage except to thank your participation and to declare this meeting adjourned until this session adjourned until 3 p.m.